An introduction to the New York State Social Studies Framework for second grade. Hello, I'm Jeff Kresge, and I serve as the district instructional coach for the Jamestown Public Schools. In an effort to make New York State's frameworks easier to access and understand, I'm going to create a series of short videos that will come out about once a month on how you can be covering the New York State frameworks in your classroom. A quick glance at the headlines or social media feeds is all the proof that we need that teaching of social studies is more relevant than ever in today's world. As a society, it would seem that we are lacking in empathy, understanding, and a willingness to take even a bit of time to research things on our own. This is where the teaching of social studies can be a powerful tool, both in your classroom and in the world today. The teaching of social studies aims to create open-minded learners who thoughtfully tackle questions through facts and research, not raw emotion and ill-informed opinion. The New York State Frameworks has 10 different standards for the teaching of social studies for second grade. There's no requirement as to how or when teachers cover these standards. Likewise, these standards don't have to be taught as a standalone. In fact, I would urge you to integrate them into what you're already doing to make your work more meaningful. To support you in your work, I'm going to cover one of the 9 standards in a short video each month during the school year. Again, you don't have to cover the standard in that order or during that month. However, I hope these videos will serve as a guide or a reminder that you're on the right track. Here's a quick overview of all 9 standards for second grade found in the New York State Social Studies Framework. I'll use the actual language from the frameworks and then provide an example question and some topics of study that might help you teach those standards. Standard 1. A community is a population of various individuals in a common location. It can be characterized as urban, suburban, or rural. Population density and use of the land are some characteristics that define and distinguish types of communities. An example of a question that we might ask students to get at the standard is, how are lifestyles different for people living in urban, suburban, and rural settings? And topics of study that we could cover: urban, suburban versus rural in terms of population density, in terms of housing, apartments versus farm versus homes, and cultural activities that's available in each of those settings. Standard number 2. People share similarities and differences with others in their own community and with other communities. An example question could be, how does our local community benefit from having people of different cultures and backgrounds living here? Topics of study might be to have students identify their own culture and background, explore different ideas, talents, perspectives, and cultures in the Jamestown area and how we learn from each other, and to identify community events that bring people together from different backgrounds in order to develop a common community. Standard 3. The United States is founded on the principles of democracy, and these principles are reflected in all types of communities. An example question that we might ask our students is, why are the principles of democracy important to the U.S.? And topics of study could be the principles of democracy, which might be dignity for all, equality, fairness, and respect for rules and authority. The role of the democratic principle plays in our lives, how the government keeps people safe, the process of voting and how voting fits into democracy, and the symbols of American democracy like the eagle, the flag, the Statue of Liberty, or the White House. Standard 4. Communities have rules and laws that affect how they function. Citizens contribute to communities' government through leadership and service. We could ask students how laws and active citizens affect the community in order to hit this standard. Topics of study might be the importance of fair laws. To identify who makes and enforces laws, students could provide a service to the community, such as thank you letters to helpers or clean up the school grounds, or identify ways adults could help the school and or the community. Standard 5. Geography and natural resources shape where and how urban, suburban, and rural communities develop and how they sustain themselves. An example for this might be, how do the physical features of a place affect how people live there? And topics of study could be to locate the community on a map, to create maps to represent the school, community, or illustrate places and stories, to examine how physical features affect life there, to examine how people change the environment to fit their needs, to look at the locations on a map, to find equator, hemisphere, poles on a globe, and to use the legend of a map to find physical features of the local area, New York State, or the nation. Standard 6. identifying continuities and change over time can help understand historical developments. An example question could be, by using historical evidence, how can we tell what has changed over time and what stayed the same? Topics could be the use of historical evidence, maps, population charts, photographs, newspapers, artifacts, etc., or to create a timeline for Jamestown for important local events, such as the construction of the school. Standard 7. Cause and effect relationships help us recount events and understand historical development. An example question for this is, how have cause and effect relationships affected Jamestown? And topics could be to distinguish between cause and effect and examine local cause and effect relationships such as the Italian immigration to Brooklyn Square and the Lucy Fest leading to the tourist industry here. Standard 8. Communities face different challenges in meeting their own needs and wants. An example question to get at the standard might be, how does Jamestown meet its needs? And topics of study could be supply and demand, and resources in the community, needs in the community, the use of money to meet those needs, and the purpose of our taxes. And finally, standard number 9. A community requires the interdependence of many people performing a variety of jobs and services to provide basic needs and wants. A question to get at this standard might be, how are goods produced and services provided in Jamestown? Topics might be goods and services in Jamestown, the diversity of jobs here, and the sharing of services within the larger community. Again, these are the 9 standards for the New York State Frameworks for Social Studies for 2nd grade. It matters not when or how you convey these to students, but please make every effort to make your lessons fun, challenging, and engaging for your students. And please remember that if you should need any help, lesson ideas, or further explanation on any of the social studies standards, please don't hesitate to contact me at jeffrey.a.kresge@jpsny.org or by phone at 716-483-4393 or extension 7033. I thank you for the work that you're doing to create the active citizens of tomorrow.